Hey, the clip you're going to see is from a podcast I do on the OBR's network with Brad Ward and Abby Mueller called Things I Think I Know. The whole thing's going to come out later this week, but here's a clip from it. See if you like it. See if you like what we do here. I think it's a pretty damn good podcast we do over there at the OBR network, and check it out. Just wanted to give you guys a taste so you know that there's another good hour of sports talk out there with really good hosts. So please check it out.
Quincy Carrier, your turn on Things I Think I Know.
The one thing I think I know is that the Browns have the absolute right coach at the absolute right moment. Lost in all of the discussion with the whole Jacksonville thing was how this team recovered from an abysmal performance in week one that you could blame on everybody. Remember, I came on the show and said you could pick a name from a hat and say they were the problem on offense. And you'd probably be right because it was a lot of things going wrong there. Doesn't excuse any individual name in that hat, but a lot of people just did not have their best day that week. And it was more imperative, and you'll find out about this team, about how they bounced back from it. And they went back, beat a good team on the road in Jacksonville that people expect to be in the playoff contention. I know we don't think highly of Jacksonville right now because of how they've started the season, but by the end of the year, it'll probably be a 9-win team, and it's going to be a quality win on your record there for the Cleveland Browns. Another thing that was clear to me in that Jacksonville game was that the Browns clearly had the better coach between Doug Peterson, Super Bowl winning head coach, by the way. Also got fired 4 years after winning the Super Bowl, which always makes me wonder how bad was it? But because Mike McCarthy lasted like 8 years after he won that Super Bowl. Brian Billick lasted 9. Like you usually get forever you win a Super Bowl. Only getting 4, and they tired of you after that Super Bowl is crazy. So Doug Peterson, he uses all his timeouts in the first half of a game at home because they can't get the play calling.
I know.
Look, we talk about play calling all the time, and I think Brad and Ab, you guys have seen me rant about this, where like people get play calling wrong. People think it's about what you call at certain times, but really a good play caller does one thing: get the freaking play in, right? Yep. They get the call in on time. You know how your team, you got your team got a good play caller? 12 seconds left. They're making checks at the line of scrimmage. They're getting set. They're on their own pace, right? They're not letting the defense get a free run at you because they can just time up their start with the clock because you're that low on it, right? Yeah. You get the play calling. You get the chance to evaluate. That doesn't happen for Jacksonville. They got some weird system where half the time it's Doug Peterson calling the plays and half the time it's Press Taylor calling the plays. And I'm like, they're lost in the sauce. Play calling does not matter that much. It's the play sheet that matters. And they're doing all this arguing about the play call. They're cooked. They're cooked. That is what a badly managed coaching staff looks like. That is what a poorly coached team looks like, is what that Jacksonville offense looks like. Because they're talented. They're as talented, if not more talented on offense, at least, than the Cleveland Browns. They got the more talented quarterback at the younger part of his career at this point. Like, they should have looked a lot better versus the Cleveland Browns than they did. And this is what they put on tape. And they had a better week one performance than the Browns because they almost won their game. The Browns even come close to winning their game against Dallas. So to me, that was obvious. The Browns have the best head coach for the moment. Another reason why I think the Browns have the best head coach for the moment is too high, right? We've been talking about too high forever. And now it's getting to the points where people are misconstruing what too high means, right? But the reason I think the Browns have the right coach for the right moment, when you talk about these too high defenses, what is required to beat them is not just running the ball 900 times, right? It helps to run the ball for sure, but it's a balance. Because what are we really talking about? We're really just talking about the fundamentals of football, the things that we learned early on from play-by-play commentators and John Madden scribbling on the pad telling us, oh, they're in too high. You want to get them out of too high? You got to run to get them out that look, and then they're going to have to bring a safety into the box. We're talking about fundamental football with this too high stuff. And the Browns always keep an emphasis on running the ball. They were third in rushing attempts last year. And Nick Chubb got hurt 5 quarters into the season. He still, and it wasn't like we were running it good.
No.
We just ran it. And that's because Kevin has a emphasis on running this ball. He's always going to run the ball. I know people had to meme early in his career that he refuses to run the ball, but that's
Run
only
the
because
damn
he
ball.
wouldn't run the ball 80 times a game instead of 35 times a game. And Kevin running the ball in this too high world and being balanced about it, and then running an offense where he understands the importance of being on time and taking what the defense gives you and being patient, right? The things that we're talking about that beat these too high defenses that everybody's running now are the things that we've been talking about Baker needing to do, or Kevin wanting his quarterback to do, or look how well Jacoby Brissett does this when he's in there with Kevin Stefanski, right? These are the principles of Kevin Stefanski's offense, is beating cover two. So we got the perfect guy to lead this offense in a cover two heavy world. And then defensively, we talked about it before the show. We talk about too high, and it makes it seem like the safeties being deep is all you need. Like Mel Kiper out there talking like, oh, well, it's the safety and the depth that they're getting is why this is working. That's not why too high works. Too high has existed for a long time, but it hasn't worked at this level ever. The reason it's working at this level is because of the strength of defensive lines combined with the weakness of offensive lines out there, right? A lot of people complain about Jed Wills. What people don't understand is that Jed Wills is going to get $20-40 million like next year to play left tackle for somebody, because there's just not that many tackles out there. And that's where, if you're not satisfied with what Jed Wills is doing, it's like, yeah, that's what tackle play has been. That's what offensive line play has been. Look at Baltimore, a team that never has a bad offensive line. Their offensive line looks horrible, right? Pittsburgh's offensive line has gone through some struggles. Even Cincinnati's offensive line, they continue to struggle, right? All of these teams are going through offensive line woes, except for the Chargers, who got 2 top 5 picks on their offensive line, 2 top 5 hits in Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater. So it's really that combination of not only can teams be in cover 2, but they can rush with 4 and get home with 4, because dudes not dudes. A guy like Myles Garrett exists. It's the strength of Myles Garrett. This is why Myles Garrett is one of the most important non-quarterbacks in the NFL, because with Myles Garrett, you can always just get pressure with 4. It doesn't matter. You get pressure with 4. It's not always going to be Myles that gets home with it, but you'll be able to get pressure with 4. Hey, look, they're going to rotate all these guys over so that they can stop Myles Garrett. Well, that leaves a one-on-one for Alex Wright. He ends the game, right? Or that makes the guard kind of peek at Myles before he punches at Alex Wright. Alex Wright could beat that double team right underneath him. It's that ability to win with your front 4 rushers in combination with being able to cover in the back end that makes that cover 2 very strong. And it's ironic because the Browns have that strength, and they don't even need to run the too high looks because they have such strong corners that they can just run man and get home in man coverage with the pass rush to where you can't do anything about it. That is what this is about, taking away early options and getting to the quarterback. That's what too high is all about. It's not about just playing cover 2. And that's why I'm saying the Browns are built perfectly to live through this revolution on defense. And then another thing, Andy Dickerson deserves a lot of credit that he's not getting right now. I saw people blame the holding penalties that the Browns got at the end of this game on Bill Callahan leaving. Now, whenever people blame it on Bill Callahan, look, I respect Bill Callahan and the work that he put here, but I watched the Tennessee Titans play. It's not like he sprinkled that magic dust on them and they're playing great offensive line play out there, right? It looks pretty bad out there even with Bill Callahan. They're holding a lot out there even with Bill Callahan, because that's not really in his job purview, is to stop guys from holding. That's not a professional coach's job. What is in his job purview is the run game and how that run game looks and how these protection plans look. And what I can say is, look, this offensive line is held up pretty strong considering that they've had James Hudson out there. And for 2 drives, Jermaine Ifedi was playing right tackle. And they still were moving the ball with those 2 guys at tackle. They're stressing the interior of this offensive line a lot to be able to hold up. And I think they've done a good job of that. But more importantly, what Andy Dickerson has done is really revamp this run game. It is nice to
Yeah.
watch the Browns run game. It's not like we're just like, oh, wide zone. Hopefully this guy gets here in time. And if he doesn't, it is what it is. No, we're just getting guys off the line of scrimmage, getting 3 yards a lot easier on first down, getting 5 yards a lot easier on first down. And all of this to me is like, yeah, the players aren't playing their best football yet. I think that is true about this Cleveland Browns team. They're nowhere near hitting their peak, but the bones of this team, the foundation of this team, the schematics of this team, right? The coaching staff of this team, especially offensively, I really do like what I see. So when these guys start to catch up and play their best football, and, if we get anything out the quarterback position, then all of a sudden this thing flips into something that can be really productive throughout the year, because now you have something that's not just built to be successful, but built to be successful against the very thing that the league is doing. And you talk about just being able to run the ball with Deontay Foreman and Jerome Ford. Imagine adding Nick Chubb to this. I forget who
Yeah.
said this in the post-game show, but it's like you can run Nick Chubb and Jerome Ford, and you're stretching guys left and right with Jerome Ford, and then you're just pounding them in the chest with Nick Chubb, and then just getting rested there the whole time is Deontay Foreman. Like
Mhm.
for one drive, just coming in there, getting like 5 carries and just going up the middle and really just being physical and brutish up the middle there for the run game. And I really see a recipe for success here for this football team. The players got to live up to it. Obviously, the quarterback has to live up to it. But man, I really hope the Browns understand as an organization, Jimmy Haslam, all them involved, that this coaching staff, this
Yeah.
head coach they have, yeah, this is the guy. This
Yeah.
is the
Yeah.
guy, right?
Yeah.
This is a good coach. You got the GM in place. Now we need to build around that. And also, if they do need to look for a new quarterback, I have nothing but confidence in their ability to find that and develop it.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned Doug Peterson at the beginning, because I'm like, why do people still kind of like not talk about him as a not great coach? And I feel like it's the Urban Meyer effect. Like he came in right after Urban, so he looked
Mhm.
very good because of that. And so people just kind of like have forgotten that maybe we should probably get past that point in time. But yeah, the one thing that really stood out to me that you were talking about when you mentioned penalties, I feel like it's been overstated also on Kevin Stefanski how much the penalties are his fault. I think a lot of people have been blaming him for the high number of penalties. And look, like of course it's the coach's job to have his guys prepared and aware of everything that needs to be done. But like it's also the job of the quarterback to make sure his guys are set before before things get going. It's the job of each individual player to make those choices. So I do think that has been very overstated by the fan base in the last 2 weeks, how much it is the coach's fault that all of these penalties are happening. And also the fact that like the offensive line, we don't even know who's playing until that day. Like I think there's still a lot of confusion amongst the players on their roles and responsibilities and what they're doing when they're just not even sure going into that day who's going to be playing where. And that probably has contributed to it as well.
Yeah. So the thing that Stefanski, and huge fan, just think he is the guy for sure. But like, we talked about after the Dallas game a couple years ago, is week one, they got drilled by the Baltimore Ravens, like 36-3 or something, week one, coming off the butt at home. Turned around and beat Pittsburgh the next week, right? Like he has an ability to his week to week approach. His players have bought in on it. You hear him in press conferences echoing, or you know what I mean, his sentiments, his words. You can tell that they're bought in. I believe that his offensive intelligence and his constant, to your point, Quincy, about like what they're doing offensively right now fits, but and he's right for the time. But I think he always will, because he's just so good at like framing what is working, what he has, and marrying it together. So, and you see like the run game working, the pass game starting to work. But the thing that's crazy about this is they're going to get tackles back. They're going to get Njoku back. They're going to potentially get Chubb back. And this is all while we've kind of liked what we saw from week one to week two. So as you're growing into this offense that kind of fits what you want to be doing in the NFL right now, you should be getting like the most important pieces of your offense back as you're doing that. So the sky is the limit for where they can go with this, um, based on quarterback play as well as a caveat, of course. But um, I would agree that, and I think for a long time there was this narrative, just like, if Deshaun didn't work out, everybody was going to be gone. And, you've got the extensions in place now, but more than anything, the most important two guys are Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry. And if you continue to build with them, I think you continue to have a competitive team in this division into the future. And I totally agree. And I just believe in Stefanski's ability to get buy-in, not let one week affect the other, change with the times, understand the trends of the league. He's just an incredibly intelligent offensive mind. And he's surrounded himself with, this year, a different group of guys. And like at the beginning of that game, the one thing I noticed the most, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but he was in Watson's ear. Like, every time he came off the field at the beginning of the Jacksonville game, he was talking to him. He was pointing. I mean, I haven't seen him that demonstrative with the quarterback in a long time, but he was in his ear and he was like this, that. I mean, he was talking him through like every step. So I feel like he was like, we're going to make sure this works early in this game. And getting him off to that start kind of led to him building his confidence. So I couldn't agree more with that.
Yeah, and I think that's just the demonstration of like him not only being able to know what that sense of urgency was, because he was like, hey, we need to turn this around offensively and make this look better now.
Yeah.
Right? Like not next week, now. And I know outwardly he doesn't seem like a guy who has that sense of urgency because he doesn't play his cards right in front of you, but that's his strength, right? Like he doesn't play his cards out there for everybody to see. He holds his cards to his chest. And I mean, you look at it, how a team like the Browns and Kevin Stefanski's teams conduct themselves, and then you see how like the Eagles conduct themselves, and then you just realize like a lot of times we would do this as fans when we watched other teams on national TV. We'd be like, oh man, why aren't we like that? Why isn't our coach like that? Now I watch some of these teams on national TV. I'm like, oh, that would never happen with Kevin.
Yeah,
like, that would never go down with this regime here. And I think that's really important, right, for developing players. We're talking about Alex Wright made the biggest play in this game. Yeah. It's a guy they've put in a spot to develop, and he's finally in that spot to do something in his third year in the NFL, and he's blossoming into that, right? They've taken time. They're developing these guys. Alex Wright would have been a draft pick that would have showed promise his first year in the old Cleveland Browns, and then got moved to a 3-4, to a 4-3, to a 3-4, to a 4-3, to a 3-tech, and the next thing you know, he's playing special teams and he's out the league. That's what used to happen to the Browns draft picks. Now they're getting time to develop. They're going to get time to be out there and learn different things and be out there. I mean, just look at the improvement from DTR. That would have never happened in the old Brown system, where a guy can get better after not playing. Like, oh my goodness, it's amazing, right? That he could get better, not play, and then develop after that. Like, that's why I trust this organization going forward. And look, I don't think they're going to give Deshaun Watson a second contract. So you're going to have to look at developing somebody. And that's what the thing that I think separates this from the old looking for quarterbacks, which is we were looking for quarterbacks, firing the dude who was the coach who wanted the quarterback, then firing the dude who drafted the quarterback the year after that, and then firing all the offensive coordinators involved. And the next thing you know what? Like, we bring up Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield was never going to work here because we weren't stable when we brought in Baker Mayfield. He had already seen like 8 different offensive coordinators, and that instability made him the number one guy in the organization at like his second year of the NFL. He hired a coach after his rookie year. Like, that is how unstable stuff was. And he was never going to be able to be humbled in this organization because he was always going to feel like he was king here because he was way too early. It took him almost getting out the league to be humbled enough to do what he needs to do to play the football that he needs to play. And the Browns missed out on that because they weren't stable at that point, right? But if they are stable and they do draft a talented quarterback, they're going to have a plan. They're probably not going to immediately play that quarterback. They're going to be able to develop that quarterback, and then that quarterback's probably going to be good, because the problem with Cleveland has been we haven't had a good coach here. We haven't had a good general manager here. We haven't been competent here in a long time. And that's why we look for 20 different quarterbacks, because it was 35 different people making a plan at quarterback. So, yeah, you're going to look for 20 different quarterbacks when that happens.
Yeah.
But that's the thing that I see here where I'm like, okay, whatever the storm is for now, I think the Browns will weather it and get out of it with the best possible football team that they can get out of it. But just if you look at the long-term future of this team, Kevin's super young, Andrew Berry's super young. This is a team that I believe we don't have to worry about falling into those like horrible Browns habits, and then we're just doing the same thing that we used to do. I think it's a legitimately different time for Browns fans. And it's not the immediate like win now thing that we wanted, right? Where they just win a Super Bowl out the gate. But I think that change that we've been wanting for the Cleveland Browns, I saw it in Kevin where I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot this team's well coached. Of course they're not going to let this snowball into an 0-2 start. Of course they're not going to fumble away this game, and they're going to figure out a way to make, like, the Browns won that game just like how the Steelers used to beat us. Like, when you think about it, where it's like, oh man, we got a chance to come back in this, and then we get a safety and lose it. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, we're the Browns. I forgot.
Yeah.
This doesn't happen to us. Well, we're that team now. And again, you don't want to continue to win like that. Obviously, you want to be better than that. But it's nice to know that that's where they're at, where it's like, okay, hey, look, at the end of the day, we're going to outcompetence somebody to a victory if it has to go down.
Yeah. I love your Alex Wright example, because I feel like sometimes a criticism of the front office is like holding on to guys too long and like loving their guys that they have had in this organization too much. But then you have examples like that where it is worth it to really invest in people that, maybe aren't a perfect player, but if you put the time in, you put the work in, they've become a really impactful player on the team. And I think that's the perfect example of it.
You guys are talking a lot of what you're talking about is continuity, right? And the continuity that was missing for so long. And the thing that's so good about it, I think, that is whether they did it on purpose or not, they have the right formula in the NFL. So if, say, you hire a defensive coach as your head coach, right? And he hires your OC, and he's your brilliant offensive mind, and your offense looks great for 2 seasons, he's going to get hired away by somebody to go be a head coach. If you find the guy that you truly believe in can run your offense, you have to make him your head coach in the NFL, because otherwise you're always going to be looking for the next guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, look at the Chiefs, look at the teams that, you know what I mean? With Andy Reid. So the Browns have that now. They have the guy they believe in. He's an offensive mind. He can be a leader of men. I truly believe that. And he's in a position where nobody can come take him away. You know what I mean? So that is the formula for success in today's NFL, in my opinion, and the Browns have it and in place. So well said.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Great job tonight. Coming up on an hour. Things I think I know. Quincy Carrier, follow him on Twitter at Quinn_C.
If you want to see the whole podcast episode to Things I Think I Know in video format, make sure you subscribe to the OBR's YouTube channel. They're tagged up in the title above me. Make sure you check them out. Subscribe to them. I have a couple shows on that network. And then obviously, if you want to see more of me, you can subscribe to this YouTube channel as well.